Emily and Kevin, actually, from my district, I mentioned you earlier when the commissioner was here, and I talked about this issue. And I think he mentioned some of the time, the timed mowing and some of the other possible solutions to this. You mentioned the chemicals. We talked about this in the past when I visited your farm. Being an organic farmer, that creates a challenge, right?
Definitely, and that's why I hadn't done it. I went to Albany County Soil and Water and actually had NRCS come out and walk my farm and try to give me other options that I could use. I overseeded per their advice. I also did timed mowings, and it didn't help. And I'm sure that it's not their fault. It's just very invasive.
And the other thing we talked about when I visited the area, you showed me the fields. I think one of the fields you couldn't use at all because it was just completely overrun. When you said when the sheep typically don't eat, they don't go after this plant unless there's no other grass
Correct.
to eat, and then they will eat it? Absolutely.
And the problem is the young sheep are usually the ones that go after it because they're not as smart. It takes a few years to figure that out for sheep. So my fields, I couldn't use them because really, they were going after the smaller seedlings of the poison parsnip and they were getting the burns on their faces. So the vet actually said to pull them out, even though I had other grasses in there. Yeah. She said to just pull them completely out of it. So 50% of my fields were unusable this year.
Jeez.
Yeah, it was not good. So my feed costs went up, and as you see on the graphs, and I'm sorry, it's not a true scientific experiment because I didn't have a control group because they're all in this. But as poison parsnip increased, and I have a map of my farm through my grazing system with Albany County Soil and Water. So I had percentage of poison parsnip as part of my fields. As it increased, my feed costs went up. Because of that, I had to supplement with hay, and I couldn't feed them from it. And then also my twin production went down, as you see on figure 2. I was twinning at about 40 to 50%, which is an average, I would say, of sheep farmers. And then in 2018, it went down to almost 7, which is devastating for me. I produce meat, I work as a nurse to pay the bills for the farm until I can get it going, as we all do. But it was really devastating because, I depend on that to pay for my increased hay costs.
And while I was there, you also, the farming community is a tight-knit community.
Yes. And
you're from the town of Bern, but in the area, in the small area that you live in and the farmers that you know, this is not an isolated problem. You're in your conversations with other local farmers, they're experiencing very similar challenges.
Absolutely. And people have come by and said, what are you doing about it? And so it's definitely a topic of conversation. Especially when, farmers are already struggling. We have a very, very, the middleman gets the most money, And so when I'm trying to produce something that is going to market at a very low cost, I don't have that kind of margin to play with. I don't have, thousands of extra dollars to buy feed, which I had to do this year.
Yeah. And certainly what you said with the funding, something we talked about with the commissioner, hopefully that'll, some information will come back.
I think he grows parsnip.
I hope that the committee will consider.
Not that kind of.
And I've asked both of you to be here because I think it's a issue certainly affecting my district, and I think it's more widespread than we even know. And I don't know, how many other farms across the state, or possibly, maybe even outside the state, that are being affected by this. It's maybe a national discussion at some point if it continues. But I know with the knapweed that we're going to talk about, when you mow this down, it actually further expands the problem because of the seeds, right?
Absolutely.
So describe that process. When you mow it down, the next year, it's grown exponentially.
Absolutely. So the seed actually is viable in the soil for up to 5 years. So at any time, any given year, it can just sprout. So even if you treat it with chemicals or mow it, it comes back. And so, a lot of farms in the area are being leased or rented. If the farmer doesn't have enough money to pay for chemicals to try to bring the pasture back or the hay fields back, then they let them go dormant. And the problem is they're letting everything take over, the knapweed and the poison parsnip. And so, like the field above me, it's 80 acres and it was for sale. So the farmer stopped farming it. and let it go. He didn't replant grass there. So it was just, he had corn there previously, so he cut all the corn and left it. So then what takes over? The most invasive thing possible, which is poison parsnip and knapweed. And so from that field, it spread to mine as well as in the ditches when the county cut it, when it was at seed. So, that didn't help me out at all. So I think that, part of the problem is farmers retiring and leaving fields to go dormant, or people just not having the money to take care of the fields that are already there. I don't know if I answered your question.
No, you did. And well, thank you for the testimony, the information. Hopefully this will become a priority in the budget, trying to find a way to address the issue or begin to find solutions. And as we said, chemicals are not always the answer, especially since you're being an organic farmer. That creates another challenge, so we have to look for other ways, and we'll look to prioritize funding in the budget that could help with this. But thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me, you guys.